Tonight, we're joined by a man whose influence extends from the White House to Wall Street to Silicon Valley. Marc Beckman, best-selling author, NYU senior fellow, and advisor to America's most powerful figures, recently sat down with the First Lady, Melania Trump, for an interview that captivated nearly 1 million viewers. But Marc's impact goes far beyond high-profile interviews. As China's AI capabilities surge and America races to maintain technological dominance, he's sounding the alarm about what's really at stake in this digital Cold War. From blockchain innovations that protect free speech to artificial intelligence that could reshape healthcare and national security, Marc offers rare insight into how the Trump administration is positioning America to win the tech battles that will define our future. So join us for a conversation that moves from the corridors of power to the cutting edge of innovation. Marc Beckman, welcome to the program.
Gary, thank you so much for having me today. It's great to meet you, and I have to compliment you. I know you've been at this for a long time. Congratulations with all of your success, and I understand that you recently achieved status as a real reporter with access into the White House. So that's awesome for us. Congratulations.
Yeah, we're really excited over here. We're taking things to the next level. You know, cancel culture is dead, and we are at the forefront of correcting the narratives now directly in the White House. And speaking of the White House, you just did an interview with the First Lady, Melania Trump, reaching nearly 1 million viewers. What do you think resonated most with audiences about that conversation?
I think that for the most part, Gary, the feedback that I received was they loved watching the video because for the first time they were able to truly see who she is. She opened up. She explained her philosophy, her background, her passions. She spoke about her family. She spoke about her interests. She spoke about a lot. We sat down and discussed a large range of topics, including her love of music and Pink Floyd, to landing on different topics for individual freedom. We spoke for over an hour, but I think the resounding level of feedback was that she was very honest and people were able to see a part of the First Lady that they have not yet seen before.
Okay, roll it back a minute. You said Pink Floyd. I love Pink Floyd. I didn't know that Melania was a fan. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, I was excited about that too. I covered a lot of like 80s music with her, and she explained to me that she loves Floyd, she loves Pink Floyd, and she still listens to Pink Floyd. So super cool.
Well, I'm a child of the 80s. I love Back to the Future and all the 80s movies and 80s music. But, in your interview, she spoke candidly about her views on individual freedom. So as someone who's known her professionally for many, many years, what aspects of her perspective do you think are most often misunderstood?
Well, when you bring up the topic of individual freedom, I think you'll appreciate this in particular, Gary. I imagine your audience will as well. Her perspective is that the individual comes first. And if you take care of yourself and you have all of your individual freedoms, in turn, you could take care of everybody else around you. And she applies that philosophy to her family. She cares for herself and takes care of her health first. And then in turn, she prioritizes her son, her husband, and now her father. Her mother, of course, passed away, unfortunately, sadly, about a year ago. But when her mother was alive, her parents were also within her specter. She still takes great care of her father, and that's her priority. So start with the individual and go from there. Now, the part that I think you and your audience will appreciate is that this includes the idea of a smaller government. The government should not intrude on your personal freedom, on your liberty. It doesn't really have a place to be there. And she gets into that topic with me as well.
Okay, so everybody wants to know, Marc, about what she wore at the inauguration. And, was she sending a message? Because, she looked like she was like, I can't even explain it. Like she had the face and she had the clothes and like walking back into the swamp after everything that they did to that family. I mean, what? Tell us a little bit behind the scenes, if you can.
Yeah, well, look, Melania Trump is a part of the fashion community. She's been a fixture within the fashion community, for better or for worse, for a long time now. And she's very measured and very deliberate with what she does. You might recall, for example, during Trump's first administration, she was particular about what she selected to wear. So when she went to visit the Pope, she wore the Italian designers Dolce and Gabbana. When Macron came for the first state dinner here in the United States, she was also paying homage to France. Very deliberate with regards to what she wears, a lot of respect. There is messaging in there. When it comes to this inauguration, though, since she hasn't spoke to the topic yet, I'm going to defer to her and let her be the first one to speak to it.
Yeah, no, it was. Everyone's like, yeah, she's sending a message. She's not messing around. Now, speaking of, you've worked with fashion, prominent figures, fashion, entertainment, politics. What unique challenges come with advising someone in the public spotlight on digital initiatives?
Yeah. Here's the thing. We are in a time that is very exciting. I believe that artificial intelligence and cryptocurrency will become the single largest growth sector in the United States of America over the next 4 to 5 years. And a lot of that is fueled by President Trump unlocking American ingenuity. We're going to see, because of his executive order, a lot of companies and people in finance moving money back into the United States, moving talent back into the United States. But at the end of politics and at the end of the investment comes advanced technology, superior technology. And what that allows for is for individuals to create messaging, to create original content, and to monetize in ways that have yet been available before now. So we're going to see this incredible growth, in my opinion, fueled by American ingenuity because of this new administration. I'm very excited about it, Gary. It's going to be a great time. If you are, for example, an individual who wants to create original content, film, publishing, stories, fashion designers, if you want to be the next big Hollywood director, now is the time to really embrace new technologies. And they're available. I mentioned it. I have a new book. My new book, Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything, was #1 on Amazon for AI, #1 on Amazon for crypto, #1 on Amazon for robotics. And within my new book, all of those tools are laid out for every reader. So if you're a beginner and you're curious on how you could use artificial intelligence to enhance your career, enhance your community, or even enhance your family, Gary, all of the tools that you need are included in my book.
And we're going to link to it in the description so everybody could get a copy. It's available at Amazon. What the title again is?
I actually have a copy over here. Is it okay if I hold it up?
Yeah, please do.
It's Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything. And it's on Amazon, it's at Target, it's Barnes and Noble. It's sold out on Amazon and Barnes and Noble because it's really basic. It's for beginners who want to learn about artificial intelligence. It's not a tech book. It's really, if you want to be and see how you could use AI to improve your career, this is a great tool to use. So it's
What do
back
you say to people?
available again on Amazon now.
What do you say to people who, because I know a lot of our viewers have concerns about AI. They believe that it's going to take over the world and, have singularity. And what do you say to people who have those types of fears of even using these tools?
Yeah, I'm a tech optimist. I have been always in the camp of accelerate.
So they didn't.
Go ahead.
I've always been in the camp of accelerate. My feeling is that if we leverage artificial intelligence to innovate, all of humankind, all of society, all of America will benefit. How will we benefit? We'll benefit by creating new financial value.
Sorry, I'm trying to queue up. I'm trying to queue up one of your videos on X here. Didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
That's okay. We'll be able to unlock new financial value as well as raising everything within society. Think in terms of better healthcare, more affordable healthcare, better access to food, food security, these types of things. So, artificial intelligence is really going to play a role in all of that. Think about your world, Gary. I got to meet you a little bit, right? The fact that you could rely on artificial intelligence now to remove some of the monotonous tasks that you hate, that I hate. The fact that you can use artificial intelligence to compete with perhaps the bigger corporate news agencies where they're hiring 20 people to do a job now that AI could provide for you.
Yeah.
It does a lot. It gives you a commercial advantage, but it also gives you more time that you could spend with your family, with your loved ones. It allows for you to use your creativity, perhaps, to stand up a new business venture versus doing all of those monotonous tasks that most of us just don't love.
Yeah, I find it to be a revolutionizing tool, from a creator's space, simply because it can expound upon ideas. It could, draft outlines. It can, I mean, even structure, travel itineraries that I've had to do, or even, structure, if I've got to go to Washington and I'm going to be there for 4 days, how can I optimize my time? At the White House in between my show and all these things. So, I mean, there's really amazing tools that I have found, from a personal perspective, a professional perspective. And I think that, by people reading your book, a lot of those fears are going to go away.
I,
Um,
I
Go
agree.
ahead.
I agree.
Okay.
I was going to say, like, people are intimidated by new technology, right? And right away, people think of AI. They're thinking, like, how do I use AI? I don't know how to program. I'm not an engineer. But people should understand in your audience, it's as simple as using plain English. So you are really using artificial intelligence as a tool. If you want to create a video, if you want to create a document, if you want to create a photo looking image, all you have to do is prompt with plain English, a text, and the artificial intelligence will deliver results for you. And that's what's unique. It's really simple. Children could use it, and children do use it today.
Yeah, in fact, I was at a playground. It was a couple years ago, and one of the kids grabbed the parent's phone and they went on ChatGPT and they asked ChatGPT what can they say to their parents so that they could stay at the playground longer to play with their friends. I
Yeah,
couldn't believe it when I saw them doing it. It was pretty remarkable, and yeah, kids can use it too. Now let's go to blockchain. You've been at the forefront introducing blockchain technology to various sectors. When you helped introduce blockchain technology after the 2020 election, part of the strategic thinking was to create platforms that couldn't be shut down by big tech. Can you talk about how blockchain helps protect free speech and commerce?
sure. So it's a great question. I think you're referencing the fact that for the first lady, we stood up. She was really the first person in politics, way ahead of anybody, to stand up a Web3 vertical, and it still exists. It's on melaniatrump.com, and it's also on usamemorabilia.com. And if you remember, coming out of that time period, cancel culture was rampant. In fact, centralized commercial platforms, including Amazon, including Apple, were literally canceling, wiping businesses that were conservative oriented off the map, off the radar. So a company like Parler literally had no presence any longer on the App Store, on the Apple App Store. So our goal with Melania was to avoid cancel culture and
Now,
to
now,
make.
now, real quick, I just want to jump in because I believe there was an interview she gave where she talked about being debanked.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, so go ahead.
So we could get into that. I'm happy to share that. It's in her book. But on the tech side, as it relates to Web3, the idea was really to ensure direct nexus from the former first lady at the time, the current first lady, to her fan base. And we were able to do that by taking big companies, big tech companies like Amazon and Apple out of the equation. So with Web3 technology, with blockchain, with NFTs, it gave us the ability to stand up a direct communication that would effectively protect her from any type of cancellation or anything of that nature.
Wow. That's remarkable. And of course, there's talk of putting the treasury on the blockchain, all these types of things. What potential do you see in blockchain beyond cryptocurrency that could actually benefit American society?
Yeah, I think that it is. It's an amazing technology. I'm in favor of it in a major way. I think all brands can start to use and should start to use Web3. We saw when President Trump came out of office. At that point in time, crypto and Web3, blockchain, NFTs, they were really, really explosive. And then Biden put so much regulation into the category that it slowed everything down. It pushed investment overseas. It moved our talent base overseas too. It's such a disgrace what he did to that sector. But the technology is superior, and it's superior in a lot of different ways. So, for example, brands will now be able to stand up consumer customization. People will be able to hold on to their own currency. They don't have to worry about being, you mentioned the idea of being debanked, right? Company individuals don't have to worry about that if they're holding on to their own currency. They could save money on transactions because no longer do we have to have a middle entity like a bank handling all of the transactions, and they could happen in real time. When something is embedded on the blockchain, it's done so in a way that is permanent, it's immutable, and you could move around with it. So it's going to change, I think, philosophically. We're going to see people change as well because it gives individuals a different type of freedom, a different type of liberty. There's no censorship, there's no debanking. You're in control of your ID, you're in control of your wallet, you're in control of your privacy. So think in terms of, why do homeowners have to share so much information publicly if they're purchasing a home? If you and I wanted to have a transaction, we could do so privately. We could move the documentation of ownership for that house between each other on a blockchain protocol to protect ourselves in ways that haven't been done before. We could even show proof of solvency now by looking at a digital wallet, but we don't need to know who owns that digital wallet. The idea of privacy stands up in a much bigger way. So I think you're going to see benefits from crypto. People don't understand it yet. I understand that. My first book and my current book break that down a little bit, but it's going to be really beneficial to the entire community.
I want to dig deeper into your book, but I want to get your thoughts real quick on XRP. I'm rather bullish on it. I
Yeah,
hold some of my own.
good.
What are your thoughts on that?
So I don't take this as investment advice at all. But I would say, like, as a blanket statement, XRP is definitely one of the better cryptocurrencies today from a technological perspective. I like the entire category. If you look at the various types of cryptocurrency, for me, XRP is one of the leads. I also like, I think Bitcoin is going to be digital gold. ETH I love because it has the most builders, the biggest community. With Melania Trump, we've been using Solana the entire time for a lot of reasons. I think Sol is very valuable. A lot of great builders in Solana's ecosystem. Cardano does a great job too. We use ADA, it's cryptocurrency, and Cardano, for example, we stood up programs, I believe, with both Washington, D.C. and Reno with through the use of Cardano and ADA. So I'm very bullish on crypto, and I think that President Trump's recent executive order also gives us reasons to be excited about it.
Now, you dropped a lot of different crypto names here, and I think that kind of gets people confused. They don't understand what's the difference between these cryptos. And I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this, but if you could just kind of break it down for our viewers, layman's terms, like what are these different cryptos and why are there so many different types?
Yeah. So it's honestly, it's it's going to become irrelevant. We're going to see Web3 and crypto working as like an underpinning engine for all of technology in the future. It's coming. But what happens is basically there is imagine like a block, like a ledger, like a financial ledger that is basically analogous to a blockchain protocol. And within each ledger, within each blockchain protocol, there's a corresponding cryptocurrency. So, for example, when I mention Ethereum, the blockchain protocol, it carries the cryptocurrency ETH with it. Now, people will build within the Ethereum ecosystem different things. So, what do they build? They could build digital assets, digital artwork. They could create entire platforms. Like Nike was using Nike, the sneaker brand, or I guess the athleisure brand, also was using Ethereum, or a second layer of Ethereum, on a lot of its crypto or digital asset verticals. People can use these ecosystems for all different purposes right now, whether crypto is connected to it or not. And like, for example, our agency, when I referenced Washington, D.C., we used cryptocurrency, or the cryptocurrency ecosystem, to provide individuals with unique access and experiences throughout the city. So it depends on what the builders want. Essentially, think of it like, right now you have a situation in Web 2 where companies like Amazon and Apple and Google are taking your personal ID and your personal data. And they're using that to monetize, to make money off of it for various reasons. Well, now with the advent of Web3, blockchain technology, and crypto, you could hold on to your personal data. You don't have to give it to a centralized entity. They don't have the ability to sell it anymore. You could own it. You could hold on to it. If you want to sell it, you can sell it, but it protects your privacy. So it's interesting. People, Gary, are like, they're afraid of the government. They don't want the government to intrude too much, but we give so much access to these major tech companies. And what Web3 does is it takes control back to the individual. It allows for us to maintain our privacy and to monetize our ID and our habits, really, the way that we want to. Does that make sense?
No. Oh, sure, absolutely. I get it. You can build all these different, utilitarian features on the backbone of these cryptocurrencies and the blockchain, and it's all transparent. It's transparent, but it still maintains privacy, which is remarkable. Now, your book, Some Future Day, How AI is going to Change Everything, you mentioned, has become a bestseller in multiple categories. What inspired you to write the book, and what is the central message that you wanted to convey?
So like I said earlier, I'm a big tech optimist. And what I find is that artificial intelligence, I believe, is going to fundamentally change the way society functions for the better soon, Gary. I think within 3 to 5 years, we'll see a fundamental change. And it's going to permeate every aspect of society, from the creative industries to finance, from medicine to government, all the way through war. My book, actually, my favorite chapter in the book, shows the evolution of warfare. I look at it like a post nuclear time period where artificial intelligence, for example, fueling drone swarms, pilotless fighter jets, and beyond, are going to be activated. It's already there. The technology is already there. But I wanted people to look at artificial intelligence in a way where they can embrace it and get value across their careers, their families, and their cities in a way that's practical, really easy to achieve. So what I do is I provide the viewers, the readers, with tools to access now, today, to improve various parts of their life. And that was really my goal. So it's written through the lens of optimism and utility, really making it simple for people to understand and to use and to implement in their lives now. And that's where I'm coming from with this book.
What do you think is one way AI is going to change daily life over the next 5 years that most Americans aren't prepared for yet?
I hope robots. So the most basic side of it is security. We'll definitely start to see AI fueled robots in homes, in offices, in big venues, and that will be for security purposes, right? You can imagine robots surrounding the perimeter of real estate, flying above stadiums. We're going to see that for sure. There's no doubt about that. But Here's the thing. I think you're pulling it up now. Robots are going to be important. And I think we're already seeing Elon Musk over at Tesla building out an entire robot vertical. What's going to happen, as you know, Gary, like the way things work in our society is through capitalism. And through creation, innovation, and capitalism, the prices come down. And as a result, we can end up using this. So I think it's going to be only a matter of time where you and your neighbors are sharing a robot fueled by artificial intelligence to handle a lot of the daily chores that you hate, right? From dishwashing to running errands into town, picking up packages, folding laundry. These types of tasks will all be eliminated with really smart robots. They don't have to look human like you're showing right now on the screen. They might take on different forms and have different features, but the truth is that the utility part of them is going to be great. And the reason I'm suggesting that communities will be sharing robots from the outset is because that's going to help drive price down. So right now, if you want to get a robot, it's expensive, right? To have a robot in your home is expensive, but to have one robot perhaps shared amongst 5 families in your community will become a lot more affordable. And that one robot will probably be able to get all of the tasks done over the course of the day. So robots are on the way.
I love what Elon's doing with those robots. I would love to have one. Actually, I'm a product of the 80s, watching Star Wars and R2D2 and C3PO. I've always wanted to have something like that. And in fact, I actually own a Timmy robot that is programmed to patrol my home, and I can go into it with my phone, and I can tell it to go places, and I can check on the kids if I'm not there. It's really remarkable. But that's a very rudimentary little robot. It's basically like an Amazon Alexa on wheels. So like I'm already there. I love it, and I'm ready for it. I hope people will accept it with. Of course, you're going to have some trepidation and you're going to be concerned, but I think that your book's going to help people overcome some of those things. I want to talk about your appearance on Fox, discussing DeepSeek's challenge to American AI dominance. People are very concerned. We're in an AI arms race. How concerned should Americans be about Chinese companies collecting their data? What does this competition mean for our future?
Yeah, Americans should be very concerned, Gary. Your viewers, your audience should be very concerned. We are in a legitimate AI war. And at the heart of it is individual freedom, liberty. And there's no doubt about it. The two leaders are America and China. And what's interesting is you mentioned DeepSeek. Before DeepSeek came out and launched their product, which was, maybe a month ago or so, not even, I would have told you that America was ahead with regards to technological advancements by about 2 years ahead of China. Now I'll tell you, we're pretty much neck and neck. We're even. And the problem that your viewers should understand as it relates to this AI war, there are a multitude of problems, but some basic ideas that your viewers could hold on to include privacy concerns, as well as the truth. So, with the former, with privacy, if you downloaded the DeepSeek app, which over 2 million people did in that first weekend, it went to #1 in the App Store. Most people didn't read the terms of use, which
Oh boy.
included the fact that if you use their search engine component, which is fantastic, by the way, it's really a good product, your data, the data that you use to set up the account with DeepSeek and any data that you upload is stored on a server in China. What's the problem? You think DeepSeek controls that? Well, there's a Chinese law that allows for the Chinese government to access
Oh
any
boy.
information stored on servers in China. So literally, you could be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and you want to upload a proprietary report that has trade secrets important to your company. Maybe it's a tech company, maybe it's
Oh
a
my
security
goodness.
company or a defense company. Think about this, like an American defense company. If they don't understand that the terms of service include the fact that that uploaded information can then be accessed by the Chinese government, you're in trouble. And that's all legit. And people don't realize that. And it's still today, that's how it's used. So the DeepSeek product is really amazing. And it's an incredible finance story there. But that's the number one concern is American individuals' privacy, for sure. Gary, the second part of it, if I may, I'm just rolling along here,
Sure, sure.
is the truth. And here's the problem. So this goes back again. I love talking to you because I think you and I are philosophically very similar. We believe in individual freedom and liberty. We believe in small government. We believe in, really preserving or unlocking the individual's potential. Well, we have an issue, right? We don't like centralized governments controlling individuals too much, but we should also be wary of centralized corporations controlling too much. And what happens with DeepSeek is you have a corporation which I believe has had a ton of investment from the Chinese government that is now creating a narrative, a research narrative that is just not true. So, for example, if you go into DeepSeek and ask whether or not the Uyghurs are slaves in China, DeepSeek writes down, it answers you and says, China does not have any slavery. The Uyghurs are equal as everyone else is. If you ask about Tiananmen Square, it doesn't acknowledge it. If you ask questions about Xi Jinping, it won't answer you. So it's totally creating a new perspective globally now on history. It's taking almost like a Confucius type of, communist type of perspective and pushing that out into the marketplace. So you understand that you're an adult and you're, obviously very wise, but how would our children distinguish? Right?
Well, in the early days of ChatGPT, you could go to it and you could ask, how many genders are there, and like it would give you all this woke nonsense. I haven't explored, just how woke ChatGPT is these days, but there's a lot of competition out there now. Elon Musk has Grok. He just launched Grok 3, which is another remarkable product. You have Claude, which is one of my favorites to use. You know, they are programmed. And even like, remember what happened with Google when they launched their AI and you type in, give me a picture of George Washington, and it showed a picture of a black George Washington. I mean, you have these, the problem obviously in China, with how they're programming the back end with their version of truth, but even here domestically, what are your thoughts there?
I'm concerned about that too. I would like to see, if it's possible, some sort of an artificial intelligence that is representative of all people. I think if there's a way to develop or train an LLM where all people's perspectives are included, that would be fantastic. However, the truth is that the large language models that are trained today are trained on a corpus of information that is expansive. Imagine everything that humanity has written before, all kinds of reports and studies, books, all of this data. Mr. Beast isn't included in training the LLMs, but like there's a ton of data that trains the LLMs. The problem is that it still excludes a lot of different perspective. Like think in terms of like mid-century. If you look at all the Nobel Prize winners, most of them are just white men. And during that time period, it was just well known that like women couldn't create those reports. Women couldn't participate in science. They weren't professors at academia. So there's a big empty part of the corpus that's missing perspective. I think we could catch up, right? I think we should catch up and get everybody's perspective, women, people of color, et cetera. But we should try to get everyone's perspective to create more of a decentralized perspective of the world versus a perspective of the world that's controlled by corporations or by the government.
Okay, now speaking of government, and you mentioned China and their servers, we have the perplexity proposal to have the U.S. government own up to 50% of TikTok. It's a fascinating idea. As someone who studies these issues, would government ownership of tech platforms solve these national security concerns that people have, or just create new problems?
Look, I personally like to see government stay out of the private sector. right? I understand where President Trump is coming from. We have a huge debt, multi-trillion-dollar debt, and he's going to do everything he can to knock it down. But at the end of the day, we've seen throughout our lifetime and before our lifetime that when the government tries to get involved with running businesses or running entities, it fails. It just
Yeah.
doesn't work. And I think there's a slippery slope. There's too much control. So my fear with regards to China would apply here as well. It's just human nature. What happens, for example, if people on the other side of politics, people that you don't agree with, Gary, people that you don't want running your family's lives or influencing your children in the way they think too much, what if they come into office and the government still owns Perplexity, which is one of the biggest AI search engines, and it's fantastic. It's a great product. What if they go in then and they own a piece of social media with TikTok and Perplexity, and it's all mixed together? It could be too influential. It scares me, to be honest. And, it's kind of interesting. China used the same playbook, in my opinion, for TikTok. That's why we're in the situation we are today. For DeepSeek on the AI side, right? TikTok on social media, DeepSeek on AI. Great products, by the way. I think arguably TikTok could be considered the best social media vertical, certainly for S-commerce right now on the planet. They did the same thing with regards to drones. So DJI came into the marketplace. They took American technology, they rebuilt it in China, and then they sold it into America for a fraction of the cost. They undercut the entire American marketplace. And now DJI, the Chinese built drone company, is hands down by far the leader with regards to drones. So you have the same thing happening over and over again, right? With artificial intelligence, DeepSeek comes in, they undercut the market. The product is for free. You mentioned ChatGPT before, OpenAI's vertical, which is kind of expensive. So DeepSeek knocked that out, right? You get this free shiny object. Same thing with TikTok. With TikTok, what did they do? The Chinese government went in and said, we all like on social media to have engagement, consumer engagement could be driven higher if we tweak the algorithm a little bit. So you might post something on X and then post something on TikTok, and you'll notice like TikTok gets so many more likes, right? Same thing, Instagram versus TikTok. Well, that's what they did. They played with the algorithm to get more user engagement, to attract more users. And now you're seeing a similar situation with DJI. So, I'm going around in circles a little bit, admittedly, but focusing in on the United States, I don't want to see the government involved in the private sector owning a piece of, social media and artificial intelligence that permeates so deeply into society. Hundreds of millions of people are using Perplexity and TikTok right now. It shouldn't be something that the government is controlling.
Now, President Trump appears to be prioritizing crypto and AI development with some recent executive orders. What specific policies do you believe will be most impactful for American innovation?
Yeah. So one thing that I really love about President Trump's executive order for cryptocurrency specifically is the fact, so this is in contrast to what we were just discussing, is the fact that he said there will not be a central bank digital currency, no CBDC. And why is that important? Because a central bank digital currency that's controlled by the United States government can control people's behavior. That's problematic. So imagine like during the last administration, they were trying to encourage people to use electric vehicles. Good idea in spirit, right? Like, why not do good things for the environment? I imagine, like me, you also want to conserve. You like rivers and lakes and trees and the sky. You like a nice environment for us and for the next generation. But we certainly don't need the government telling us how to do it or what to do. Well, with a central bank digital currency, you can have a certain type of behavior instituted that the government wants. So imagine if like you're forced to drive an electric vehicle, but you're only allowed to charge so many times a day. By controlling the currency, the cryptocurrency through a central bank, through a central bank digital currency, they could actually turn off the allotment. They could ration the amount of electricity that you could use to power your car. The battery power, for example, could be limited. And that could apply to different things. Perhaps one day in the future, it applies to accessing water or accessing food or different types of transactions that the government wants to use to control your behavior or massive amounts of consumer behavior. So I was really excited to see in President Trump's executive order, I was surprised actually, but I was excited to see him expressly state that the United States will not have a central bank digital currency.
I was really concerned during the pandemic, as were so many millions of Americans. You know, you bring up the electric car thing, and you bring up the CBDC, and you know, during the pandemic, everyone's like, "Oh, look at this! You know, if you don't show your passport, your Vax passport, then you can't go shopping." And if they were to tie all those things together, and then with the rollout of the electric cars, and you got to have an electric vehicle by this date, and they're not going to be manufacturing them anymore, like we have seen how even Tesla can shut off cars remotely anywhere in the world if they want to. So I mean, you can restrict movement through the electric cars, and then you can restrict commerce through the digital currencies. And if you don't comply, I mean, it's an absolute nightmare to consider. So this is welcome news.
Gary, we were happy to do so too, right? Remember, like during COVID, it was like here in New York City, everybody was happy to show their vaccination card to go have a hamburger. It was the craziest thing. Everybody in New York City was happy to do that, right? So, you know, I don't know if that was groupthink or, you know, just total insanity, but, you know, there is a slippery slope. It's just a few years ago, and it's scary being a New Yorker to see, you know, you could live in a town where people would frown upon you if you aren't wearing a mask. Right.
Oh yeah, no, I got a million stories about that for sure. In fact, we left Chicago to go down to the free state of Florida during the pandemic for 3 months. That's another story, but let's talk about these executive orders. You recently stated we can't exist on executive orders alone regarding AI and crypto regulation. So, what specific legislation do you believe is needed to foster innovation and to protect the public?
Yeah, I'm so happy that you raised that topic. I'm sure you agree that this concept applies to most of the executive orders that President Trump is using right now. But, you know, in my opinion, as I stated earlier, we have such a tremendous opportunity for growth through the emerging technologies of AI and cryptocurrency. And what we want to do is lock these benefits in as a society. So it's time for Congress to step up and institute laws. Just like I said, it's encouraging for President Trump to say that there will not be a central bank digital currency. Let's put that into law. Let our lawmakers go now and implement that. It's a really basic concept. We live in America, the land of the free. Let's make sure that the government cannot control us through crypto digital assets and through crypto technology. I think it's time for us to get there. And I'd like to see legislation start moving quickly. I mean, the executive branch of our government is going a million miles per hour, and I think it's going to be tough for Congress to catch up. They got to start moving.
Now, you mentioned that we're on the precipice of a golden age in the tech sector. What role will American companies and entrepreneurs play in ensuring that we can maintain technological leadership? I mean, China is right there.
Oh, it was so encouraging to me to see the biggest tech leaders in our country standing in the rotunda as President Trump became president. Think about it. They had the CEOs and founders, Zuckerberg, Bezos, the list just goes on and on. They were all there in that room. And, you know, let's face it, this is one of the ways that all of our industries grow. If you look at technology's impact across the biggest sectors from travel and hospitality to finance to automotive and beyond, technology is playing a major role as an underpinning, but also for marketing purposes and beyond. So I'm really excited to see that that community came around President Trump on that very important day. And I think that they're going to fuel this golden age. So I am bullish about AI and crypto, but it applies across the board to all of technology.
I think personally, a lot of them are pretty scared because of what they did in the last 4 years to Donald Trump with the censorship and the canceling. They're like, we better start playing nice. We saw them all going down to Mar-a-Lago and having dinners. Elon Musk getting all the praise and accolades at Trump's side, and they're like, oh, we want a piece of that action too.
Do you think that, do you
ahead.
believe Zuckerberg though? Like, I have problems believing like
No,
Zuckerberg was so
no.
hardcore, and now there he is at
No.
the inauguration. You think he's just following? It's all business, right, Gary? It's all
It's all
money.
business. It's
Yeah.
all business. Yeah, Zuckerberg, he can ride his jet ski and wave his American flag and grow out his hair, and he can put on his chain, and he can look like he's some kind of hip libertarian type. But I'm not buying it at all.
Now,
Not for a second.
wasn't he the guy that was setting up these ballot boxes just 4 years ago? Like, how short our memory is, right?
Yeah. I mean, how much money he dumped into that last election? Give me a break. I think they were just terrified personally, and they're like, okay, we better get on board and play ball. And we've seen a lot of the censorship rollbacks lately because we've got a new FCC chair who's really taken 230 to heart, and he's putting the screws to these social media companies. And with respect to the social media companies, you got Elon Musk. I want to get your thoughts real quick because we got a couple more questions to get into. Elon Musk, he's running the Doge. I love the Doge. I love the Doge boys just going in there and cutting all the waste. What are your thoughts on Elon Musk implementing AI with Doge and what they're finding? When they start running all the government databases through the AI and just and extracting these ridiculous programs and finding all these social security numbers and people 300 years old. I mean, dead people. I mean, these are all the stories, the conspiracies that we, have believed for years, but now it's all front and center. What are your thoughts on the innovation of Elon Musk with Doge and AI?
Look, we are, the government is big. And it's time to evolve. Eventually, we're going to have to do it. So since the technology is there now, why not try to leverage it to benefit us? This first phase of data analytics, let's call it. I mean, it's unlocking information that you and I, maybe we thought these issues existed, but it's shocking to think that our government is spending money this way. So, I'm in the camp of now is the time to keep on hacking away. How amazing it would it be if if this administration in the next 4 years was able to balance our budget to get the American people into a position of strength that they can't even imagine right now. I mean, that would be incredible. So Elon's use of technology to help the country is great. There's an interesting thing though, Gary. Like, what do you think about the fact that it's like so crazy to me that people are they'll put politics first. Like, they're so upset that we're taking a look at how money is being spent. Like, we shouldn't even evaluate it. They're so upset to see, money is going through USAID in ways that, you and I might have thought, but it's hard to fathom. Right. But people don't want to talk about that. Like, why are people so sensitive to that? It's just all political.
It's crazy. When you see them out in front of the Department of Education or USAID and they're protesting because these people are getting fired. Well, like they're attacking Elon Musk. They're trying to drive a wedge between him and Trump. It's clear. They call him President Musk and all that stuff, and the Time magazine cover, all the things. Yeah. And it just all these people are doing is they're digging a bigger hole for themselves because the American people, there's a mandate, and the polls show it. Everybody loves it, and these people look like fools when they go out and they scream on their bullhorns. They get in the face. Maxine Waters getting in the face of a guy at the Department of Education. They're just digging their own grave, and I'm here for it. Let them. They are exposing themselves with every ridiculous move. They're attacking the messenger, but they're not looking at the facts. Like when Rand Paul goes and he does this Festivus report every year. Well, now that Festivus report is like in hard copy. It's you got the Doge website revealing it all, but and it's, there's other things too. The money from USAID, it goes overseas through millions of different nonprofits, and how many of those nonprofits are kicking it back to these think tanks and lobbyists, and that's why they're freaking out.
They're freaking out over everything. Like, I love the fact that like Elon's going to be participating in the cabinet meeting. makes total sense to me. Again, the technology is underlying every single one of those verticals in the cabinet, right? So he should be there talking about Doge, but people don't want him in that meeting. Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? What are they
Because
afraid of? Why? What
he's
are they afraid of?
exposing it
It's
all. I love
right,
it.
right.
I
It's
love it,
incredible.
man. I've got a SpaceX rocket on my desk here too, and I love it here. And I've
So, like,
got a
you want a guy
Cybertruck
on your
too.
team,
You
like,
know.
you hold that rocket, like, think about it. We talk about robotics and AI, like,
Yeah.
that guy is able to eliminate waste by essentially catching, like, he could grab that
Yeah.
rocket and bring it back down and use it again, right? That's what
Yeah.
he figured out how to do. Don't you want that guy on your team? They loved
Yeah.
him when it was just Tesla and EVs and saving the environment. They loved him, remember, just a minute ago. But the second he said, like, oh, I feel like my political party has left me a little bit, like it's left me, they don't like him anymore. It's all politics.
Yeah, same thing with Trump. You know, he was the media darling. They loved him. Oprah fawning over him. Hollywood, you know, The Apprentice. And the minute he went down that escalator, of course, the story of what happened before when they were in the elevator going down, and Donald Trump said to his family, he's like, now we're going to find out who our real friends are. And it's the same thing with Elon, watching his progress. You know, it's just crazy watching him move from, you know, hosting a DeSantis X space and then shifting slowly into the Trump camp. And then all of a sudden he's campaigning for Trump. And now he's heading up Doge. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. But I do want to talk about energy because AI eats energy. So with this development requiring massive energy resources, how should the administration balance these concerns with the need to win the AI race against China? Because Biden was, I mean, they gutted the energy sector, and now Trump's got to rebuild it, and we got the AI arms race right here.
Well, I think that's a really good question. It's very fair. I think when you look at artificial intelligence, or at least the way I describe the ecosystem for your viewers, there are really three components to the ecosystem. There's the energy piece of it, as you've highlighted. There's the algorithm, as we mentioned before, as it relates to like deep seek search and open source licensing and this type of piece of it. And then of course, there's the hardware component as well. Think in terms of like NVIDIA, the super chips, the hardware that's needed in order to pass all of this information through the technology. As far as the energy issue goes, I think you need to look at it a little bit differently. Everything is not binary, Gary. We can't look at everything as, if we get this, we have this benefit, but we lose this. There's a much bigger issue at hand here, and it goes back to part of our earlier conversation, China, right? So China, if you look at what they're doing from an energy perspective, they're not playing around anymore. They're going in and creating, it's my understanding, one coal mine on a daily basis, right? But yet we're, as a country, we're like slowing down the use of coal mines. Same thing with regards to nuclear. We're pulling back on nuclear, or we just came off a period where we're pulling back on nuclear, whereas other westernized quote unquote countries are too. Like I believe France pulled back on nuclear, but yet other nations in the Middle East, for example, are standing up tons of fossil fuels and fossil fuel usage. We're waving the flag for the past 4 years for renewable energy, which I like renewables, but the truth is that they're not as practical in this day and age as what is required from our society. So what we need to do is unlock, in my opinion, the use of fossil fuels. We need to use American ingenuity to see how we could turn on nuclear in a big way. It's clean, it's affordable, it works, but it's going to take time to get back into that nuclear realm. It's not immediate. But if we're going to win the AI war, we need to have access to energy, and we need it now. So for me, I think you're going to see a situation where energy is going to play into, Trump's already talking about it, obviously, but it's going to play into this area too. In order to unlock AI and stay competitive, we need to have as much energy as we can.
Now, your career spans advertising, tech, academia. You have your latest book, Some Future Day. You have your podcast as well on your YouTube channel. Everybody should go subscribe to it right now. What is next for Marc Beckman, and what technological developments are you most excited about?
Yeah, thanks for asking. We have a lot on our plate right now. I'm still working in all of these capacities that you've laid out. But I'm very excited. You know, I sound like a broken record a little bit, admittedly, but I am very bullish with regards to artificial intelligence and cryptocurrency. I think the innovation that is on the way is super compelling. In AI, for example, we're going to continue to see this upward trajectory, this positive space as it relates to innovation. We're going to see some changes too as it relates to how the government gets involved with the use of AI, because with more innovation come more tools and also more privacy concerns, right? Like you might have heard recently about how children are using artificial intelligence in a way that can hurt other children. They will use they could take someone's image off of a website and use that through an AI tool to create like sexually explicit videos and then disseminate it through social media. So I think you'll see Senator Cruz and Senator Klobuchar coming together to talk about these safety-oriented topics a little bit more. But that's where we're going.
Exciting stuff. I'm just scrolling your Twitter here, your X account, all these podcasts you've done. Remarkable. And you got this video here that Donald Trump shared, freed American hostage Keith Siegel's message to President Trump, rescue all the remaining hostages. Beautiful things happening on your, I mean, just with the work you're doing, raising awareness for all these things. Now, raising awareness, if you had 10 minutes alone with President Trump and you were going to advise him on tech policy, what would be your number one recommendation?
My number one recommendation would be to accelerate, to get the government away from the private sector, to get investment into entrepreneurs, into big businesses, so that we could accelerate, grow, innovate, and really unlock American ingenuity. Artificial intelligence can transform our entire society and all the businesses that it's connected to. And I would encourage President Trump to move the government away so that the private sector could stand up and really, really unleash tons of value, economic value and beyond, for Americans and all of humankind.
And there you have it. Marc Beckman has given us a glimpse into America's high-stakes digital future from his unique position. Advising at the highest levels, he's shown us both the tremendous promise and the urgent challenges of the AI revolution. And as China and the United States race for technological supremacy, the decisions made today will determine who shapes tomorrow. So whether through his best-selling books or with his work with influential figures, Marc continues to bridge the gap between complex technology and American leadership. Marc, thank you so much for this illuminating conversation. Some Future Day isn't just the title of your book, it's the reality rushing towards us at digital speed. Thanks for joining us.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations again with all of your success. It's incredible.
Thanks again. We'll have you back.